Okay, let's talk about PvP scaling in New World. The open beta is here and it turns out that it has been nerfed. And I've got to say, I don't necessarily agree with this change. So first, let's talk about what PvP scaling is. For those of you who don't know, basically it's a system where a higher level player and a lower level player can fight and the game will sort of scale itself so that it's a more balanced fight. Essentially trying to reward skill over progression. And in the open beta, they have changed it so that the higher level player has a bigger advantage than the lower level player. Whereas in the closed beta, it was perhaps a little bit more even. And that's straight out from the patch notes, you don't have to take my word for it. Now, I must confess that I'm not actually playing the open beta that much. Quite frankly, just a 3-day beta a couple of weeks before the game comes out, I'm not really that interested in. So just keep that caveat in mind. Now, this is a controversial subject all around, partly because there was a feeling online, regardless of how true or not it is, that Amazon was listening to a select group of streamers when making this change. And the argument is that these streamers, well, actually they just rushed to max level, weren't very good at the game, got outplayed, and then complained about it. Now, I think that's possibly a bit of a stretch. I think there's some real concerns behind what a lot of these streamers were saying, but whether or not they should have been listened to or not is, the subject of this video. The internet have used people like Josh OG as examples of this, but I don't really think that it's any one particular streamer that has really made the difference. And I'd just like to say, I think it's completely fine to have the opinion that PvP scaling is bad for the game. Just because I don't necessarily agree with that doesn't mean that that opinion is either wrong, obviously you're all entitled to your opinion of course, but it also doesn't mean that we should hate that opinion. We should listen to it and consider it the same way that I'm going to hope that they listen to and consider ours. It's fine for them to have their opinion, obviously, and it's fine for Amazon to listen to whoever's opinion they want to listen to. And as consumers, we can always then make our decisions based on that. But in fact, let's have a look at some reasons why PvP scaling could actually be bad for the game. And there's two main reasons that I can see. One is that in an RPG you want your progress to matter, and two, you're a little bit worried that the PvP scaling could be abused and you could maybe have like 2 naked level 12s versus a level 60 and it'd be completely unfair in favour of the level 12s. And I think both these points are reasonably fair. For your progress, of course, you want to feel like you are increasing in power. However, my caveat to that would I personally feel like that should be mostly in PvE rather than PvP. But I can certainly understand the feelings how you might feel like you're less powerful because you can't just kill the lobbies. And PvP scaling abuse could definitely be a thing. I'm thinking of people like Rextroy in World of Warcraft. Essentially, he would maybe try and one-shot a level 60 as like a level 10 just by abusing the game mechanics. Now, I don't think anybody wants that to be a thing, but I don't actually necessarily think it was that far in the closed beta, but feel free to show me examples if you think I'm wrong. And actually, I sort of feel like that the higher level player should have a slight advantage over the lower level player, but it should definitely only be minor. And I think this is how you would maintain a system where you can't necessarily abuse it, but then again, I'm no game designer. Okay, so now let's talk about why I actually think PvP scaling the way that it was and in general is a good thing. I just mentioned skill before, and actually I think most people who are playing these kind of games these days are more interested in having skill be the determining factor, especially in PvP. Obviously in PvE, then gear and stuff like that should matter. But really, if you're going to be against an actual real player, then you want to feel like that the skill was a deciding factor, not how much gear somebody has or how much time somebody has played the game. And this coming from somebody who's planning for the first week to just no-life the game. But I still feel like skill should be the deciding factor, even though I'm pretty sure I'm going to be garbage at the game. There's a popular clip that's often shared around when you look at these kind of subjects, and basically it looks like that streamer gets slightly outplayed, and then, the comments are, well, it's a level 40 odd versus a level 17, how could this happen? But really, it's that skill that made the difference, and I think that is good and important. I also think PvP scaling encourages more PvP at low to medium levels. Knowing that if you're going to get in a 1v1 fight, which admittedly these days are getting rarer and rarer as people running around in groups, but knowing that if you do come across somebody who's like 5-10 levels higher than you, that you actually have a fair chance of beating them, I think encourages you to flag on rather than just stay unflagged and get to max level as possible. You might actually have some fun rather than just get smashed. And the next point is that PvP scaling discourages the higher level players coming down to the lower level players and acting like the Anakin Skywalker at a Padawan Academy and just decimating everybody that they find. So not being able to ruin the experience of these people who are just there trying to level, perhaps don't have as much time, I think is pretty decent. I don't think there's any harm in that. Overall, I think that this will actually reduce the PvP available for everybody. The lower levels simply aren't going to turn it on because they don't want to get smashed by the higher levels. And by the time that they are higher levels themselves, they're not going to have had that PvP experience and they're not going to have enjoyed it. Therefore, they're going to be less interested in doing it going forward. And the higher levels are not going to be able to go into like a level 40 zone and actually have a reasonably fair fight. They're not going to have anybody who's PvP flagged. I do think there is probably an issue with PvP flagging at higher levels. It does seem like there's a little bit of an incentive gap missing there, as in there's no real reason to, once you're level 60 at the moment, to like flag on PvP. You might as well do the actual like instant content like the wars and the battlegrounds. One way they could spice that up is to maybe give buffs to certain zones if you have your PvP flag on when it comes to like resources and stuff like that, but that's another topic for another video. I think it's completely fine to have different opinions and experiences. For example, I never made it to level 60, whereas Josh OG did, for example. But if anything, I'm coming from a more casual kind of player base. Even though I am planning on no lifing the release, generally I'll be like working in the day with my wife and kid in the evening and just finding time to play. Whereas a lot of these streamers, and I think this is where you find the disparity, have a lot more time to just like no life the game. So it's completely fine to have those opinions. Please don't like hate people because of it. Let's just try and discuss people on the points and we'll go from there. If you like this video, then do press the like button, that really helps. If you want more New World content, then do subscribe. Have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.